Heidi, introduce yourself.
My name's Heidi Chance, and I am retired from one career and on to the next, but I am in law enforcement.
Awesome. Law enforcement.
hmm
And then in law enforcement, you mean like a police officer, sheriff, or
So I started off as regular law enforcement as a police officer, and then I retired, and then I became a special agent.
special agent.
Uh huh.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's kind of moving from a city law enforcement agency to the state
I
as far
see.
as jurisdiction and things that you do.
Gotcha. And what do you do?
So I've done a whole lot of things in my career. When I worked for Phoenix Police Department, I was in patrol, school resource officer, community action officer, and then I moved into the Vice unit, which is the undercover unit, and then
Mhm.
that moved into or changed names, and that was what it is now is the human trafficking unit.
Vice, like Miami Vice, or
Kinda. I mean, yes, it was undercover, and luckily that agency is big enough where it has different sections of like squads of officers that have certain crimes that they cover, and so we have enough detectives to work just drugs. So I didn't really do drugs. I did prostitution enforcement.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't do drugs either.
Yeah, no drugs. Drugs are bad.
um, I wrote down some questions here, some notes. This is kind of this is a big freaking deal. You say the word human trafficking. That's terrifying. And I want to ask you, where does it start and how far does it go?
That's a big explanation.
Yeah.
I think that it starts in our own backyard. It's here. It's domestic. It isn't what you see on TV. If you've seen Sound of Freedom recently,
I have not watched that movie. Should I
Okay.
watch it?
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, it's gonna upset you, but the points of that movie is and its successes is it's got people thinking about human trafficking. The only thing that I would advise you is keep an open mind that what you view on movies isn't exactly how it happens for real and isn't exactly how it happens here in the United States. So that's more an example of international trafficking.
Uh-huh.
And so that does not look the same here in our backyard.
Okay. When you say international trafficking, you mean like other countries that have trafficking from border to border, or internationally from one country to here, vice versa?
So most of that movie dealt with human trafficking happening in another country.
Okay. I
Yeah.
see. I see.
That was mostly what was going on there.
And what does human trafficking in the United States, like, what is it? People in the people in the United States being taken from the United States or imported into the United States?
Well, it can happen both ways. I think what most of the domestic trafficking happening here is US citizens, it is our children predominantly that are being recruited and groomed by traffickers and exploited, and part of what they do is they unfortunately have access to our kids because we live in a day and age that has the internet in your fingertips, and there's parents out there that set their kids up with an iPad for hours while they're doing their thing, and their kid is doing who knows what on that computer, and who knows what strangers are talking to them. So it's where that happens, and then the whole dynamic of kids wanting to be Instagram famous because YouTube said you can make a lot of money on Instagram, and their profiles are open to the public, and that's literally an open door for not only traffickers, but sex buyers and child predators to walk right into your house, into your kid's bedroom, and engage with your child. So that is where parents really need to step up to the plate and put some boundaries and rules in place and expectations that this is my house, I pay for this phone, this is how this is going to be, and I don't want you talking to strangers on the internet.
So you're saying it's okay for the parents to be a parent?
I think that would be a nice thing.
Yeah, and stop worrying about what other people think
Yeah.
about how you should parent and raise your child. So that was very relative to some questions I had. And one of the things I wanted to say is sometimes I feel like social media is not being honest and that they are obscuring the truth. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Okay. And what you
It's
just said is social media to an extent is a kind of an opportunity.
Yeah, it's definitely an opportunity. For example, right before I retired from Phoenix Police Department, I spent a lot of time on undercover social media accounts. I call it catfishing pimps. I have 6 Facebooks, 3 Instagrams, tagged, Meet Me, Bumble, Plenty of Fish,
Uh-huh.
Snapchat,
Uh-huh.
Twitter,
Uh-huh.
all of the, all of the, all of the things, all in undercover personas where I can engage with traffickers trying to recruit and groom me instead of a real victim. And I've had some that literally I've extradited from other states because what I found is that they can literally cast the fishing line to hundreds of profiles a day, and whoever takes the bait and starts engaging with them, they'll start pursuing. And if you are copying and pasting the same message all day long, and it doesn't even matter if it's people local to your state, like other pimps from other states I have engaged with, and we've arrested them, brought them here to go to court.
And what was their intention to?
Have me work as their prostitute. And I'm posing as an adult. Imagine if I was posing as a kid.
This is real, isn't it?
This is every day. And when I have to back up. When I retired from Phoenix Police Department, I started my own company, consulting and training, specifically with 2 missions. One for law enforcement, because I have almost 13 years, over 13 years of undercover experience.
Uh-huh.
And so I want to share, especially with female officers, how to engage in these conversations with pimps, how to, engage in the elements of a crime to establish a crime against a sex buyer and a child predator. And so that's the one part. And then the other part is community awareness. And so I have a
Yeah.
course on my website and everything for the purpose of continuing education with the community, such as parents, people who are concerned about this as they learn more about it and want to get involved the right way. Because there's a lot of groups out there that are kind of popping up because they are inspired and want to help, but then they're trying to do their own undercover operations, and they've got people on Instagram trying to do their own child predator operations. And we had one guy shot in the head
Yeah.
by the predator.
And this is one thing I was going to mention is the danger.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between a professional and an amateur.
Well, also, I wouldn't walk into an emergency room and put on a white coat and just
No.
decide I'm going to perform this surgery because I don't think you're doing a good enough job and I'm inspired today and I want to save people. So I'm going to do this surgery and you're just going to have to step aside. That's kind of how we are being treated right now by all these groups that are popping up. It's like, you want to get involved, go be a law enforcement officer, go to the academy, go get your detective certification. Be a certified peace officer, which gives you the lawful authority to conduct those operations. Go do that. We have a serious problem with, there's nobody wants to be a cop anymore. Nobody even wants to be a prosecutor. So even if we had these groups generating cases, we don't even have prosecutors to prosecute them. So it's hard enough for me to get my cases prosecuted.
No one wants to be a cop anymore.
No.
Yeah, I wonder why.
Before we started, you said you wanted to hear some truth.
Oh, I do. I do.
Yeah.
That's what this is about. Is I want to get the truth from the people who have the knowledge to the people who should receive the knowledge.
Correct.
And as a father myself, I couldn't imagine anyone even looking at my kid the wrong way, let alone touching them, and what that would look like. And how serious is the problem at the border?
So my experience comes from working inner city. So I'm not Border Patrol. I've never been Border Patrol. I can tell you that obviously that's trickling into inner city. And right before I retired, I saw a whole bunch of situations where we have brothels. And it's really hard to get into those brothels because you kind of have to have from Mexico Spanish, and you kind of have to be introed in a way to that brothel from someone from the community, from that community.
So there's brothels that are kind of like invite only?
In a sense.
Like you have to have a liaison or something, or?
Kind of like that. I mean, not always, but there's definitely a scene where you hang out at a certain bar or a certain smoke shop, and then you learn to know people, and then they invite you in, and that's how you discover these things exist and where to go.
I see. And that all contributes to human trafficking, child trafficking as well.
Yes. So let me just define human trafficking, so that way we can have that out there. So a lot of people get confused with human smuggling and human trafficking.
Okay.
Two different crimes.
Okay.
Human trafficking is a crime against a person, and that can involve forced sex or forced labor. Human smuggling is a crime against the state or the border, and that involves transportation and consent, right? People typically are paying to be transported, paying to be smuggled.
Yeah.
Now, someone who's being transported, from point A to point B can be a victim of human trafficking if during that time that they're getting transported or smuggled, they were forced to perform sex acts or forced to perform labor. Then they're a victim of human trafficking. But it is definitely two separate crimes.
So human trafficking and human smuggling?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Is technology helping or enhancing the problem?
Well, technology.
Yeah, I know.
It's one of those things that is it's exasperating the problem, because like I was describing before on those social media accounts, and I'm one detective having conversations with several traffickers. It is easy for them to anonymously fish out and seek out vulnerable victims. So that's what the internet allows for.
Yeah.
As far as law enforcement, we do use the internet, obviously, as to our advantage to try and pursue these people. But we're definitely behind. I mean, with all of the new things, the AI generated people, I wouldn't want to be an internet crimes against children detective right now, because you have a situation with AI where people are creating childlike, whatever AI generated images and videos and people, and they're based on probably real people, but proving where's the victim in that, you know what I mean? And if they're producing images of children and doing things with children on AI, all of that is a huge problem that's coming up. You know how child predators trade images?
I don't.
Of kids naked, and then people doing stuff to them.
Oh, people online looking at kids, naked kids.
Yeah. Harmful images.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where technology really is going in a really bad direction with AI, and we need to get equal with some laws about how we're going to deal with all that.
Should children be on social media?
No.
Yeah.
They definitely should not.
Sorry, I asked that question kind of in a way that's so. And if kids are on social media, is there any apps or any things that parents could implement that are call it? I don't want to say child trafficking proof, but yeah, like.
So you can do the best you can do. Like my sister tells me, I can share this story about my niece. She had parental controls, downloaded these apps on the phone, trying to make sure that my niece couldn't get anywhere off on any of these sites. Somehow she was able to bypass that, because our kids are very resourceful. They learn from other kids that don't have parental controls. And she was able to create an Instagram that my sister didn't know about, that shouldn't have been able to even be created on that phone with those parental controls on it. And she was conversing with men who were asking her to send pictures of herself. So it is, I think the only thing that solves all of this are the companies like Bark Technologies or Gab, G-A-B-B, Gab Wireless.
G-A-B-B?
Gab Wireless.
What's that?
Those two companies create phones that don't even go on the internet at all.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
So you can call your mom, you can call your friends, but you can't go on the internet.
And it isn't where you're going to get made fun of, because it looks like an iPhone. It looks like a swipey, like a modern looking phone, not uncommon, but it is completely locked down.
So it's safe and also bully preventive.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole other thing with sextortion and all of the kids who are committing suicide because, people are taking pictures or sending pictures, and then that gets out to the whole school, and all kinds of things happen. The phones are evil. We need to lock down the phones.
Okay, so this is my 13-year-old niece, and I want to show you this because I don't like it. I don't like the name she calls herself. I don't like the pictures. I want you to tell me.
Well, the things that are, scary about this is she's taking pictures inside the house. So, you know what I mean? And of herself. And definitely probably being encouraged to take pictures like this.
That's what I was going to ask you, Heidi.
Yeah.
Why? How is she? Is she doing this because she sees this on Instagram?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of that is consistent with other, even younger kids that take selfies like that. And
so on my feed, it'll pop up like these questions, and then they answer it. And she did one of those, and she was at my house when I noticed it. She was visiting for Christmas, her and my family and such.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, Bella, come here. I'm with my wife, Sari. I say, hey, kiddo, we want to show you something. And I explained to her, I was like, you got to be careful. These questions aren't a game for you to play. These questions are baiting you. They're getting you to answer these questions so they can learn about you. Questions that are related to, like, who's your high school best friend and all that, so that they can hack passwords and such. Not that I think that it's really going to be used against you at this moment. They're targeting people who are a little older, who have bank accounts and such. But this isn't a game. And, I know you feel like you're participating in something. Like, I don't recommend you do that. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's other things going on with people who can, take pictures you've posted of yourself, make it seem like you're scared, and then send that to your family, telling them something's happening to you, and then they have to pay money, and all kinds of other scams, like even voice, like your voice in videos.
Yeah.
And you've heard of where you get this random call, Mom, I've gotten in a car accident.
It happened to my grandmother.
Yeah.
Someone tried to pose as me to my grandmother. My grandmother's 99 years old.
Yeah, they're definitely targeting.
Oh, gosh. Her phone rings all day. It's all a bunch of scammers. All day I go to visit her. Ring, ring, ring. And she answers the phone because she just wants to talk to people, And it's disgusting. Honestly, it angers me so much, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so her dad, she lives with her dad, my niece, and he's usually pretty good about keeping her from, all that. But I feel like at the same time, it's not enough, because even he's naive to an extent, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where
I'm terrified for my niece.
Yeah, these ideas are not coming from her. It's not going to be where she all of a sudden thought of creating a secret Facebook or a secret Instagram that he doesn't know about. These are ideas coming from people she's talking to on the internet. People who are saying, "Hey, when we're done talking here, delete our conversation." You know what I mean? Or, "Hey, why don't you create a secret social media account so that just us can talk?" Or, "Hey, send me an emoji of whatever emoji if your mom walks in the room." You know what I mean? Those kind of things are coming from that other person. I don't think our kids are thinking those things first.
No, they're not. They're naive.
Yeah. Children
are malleable. They're still learning. The information they receive in their mind is what they need to do. Like, kids are engineered to learn, to watch, and to listen, right? And then they see that, and then they emulate that. And they go, oh, this is how we do this stuff. We watch mom, we watch dad, we watch our peers, we watch our village.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to manipulate a kid. And I see it in other communities. I don't know if I want to go there. And if you don't want to go there, we don't have to. But there's definitely something going on with this indoctrination with children and making them believe that they could be one or another. And I don't feel good about it.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other thing going on here, definitely. But as far as this specific thing. I also want to put out some more truths about it isn't just the kids in child welfare. It isn't just the kids, in the poor areas of
Yeah.
town. It
Yeah.
is everywhere. I have one investigation that I did that took 5 years of my career. And in that one case, we have, a lady who was in her 40s, a Department of Corrections officer, lost her job, started using drugs, went to become a stripper, met the trafficker, and then started prostitution and being trafficked in her 40s. And then that same case, I have a girl who full ride scholarship to Northern Arizona University. Her mom's a nurse. Met a guy on Craigslist. He said he wanted to take photos of her. He ends up introducing her to that guy that was running the brothel out of his house. And she is now a resident of Perryville Prison because her entire life went from here to here, all because of the situation that she was in. So it isn't one race, one demographic. It isn't just females. It's male victims also.
Yeah. Yeah.
In all ages. Yeah. It's just one of those things where we need to be aware what it looks like, how it happens, so we can prevent it from happening and constantly be talking about it.
Well, this is a hard one for me, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. My best friend, my childhood friend, my brother, might as well call him my brother. He's my brother. He committed suicide 7 years ago in December. He was molested by his dad multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
His dad went to prison. However, his biological father took something away from him that he could never have back. And it angers me still to this day because his dad walks the earth free.
Yeah, there's definitely an imbalance in this crime specifically and any sexual offense, because I'm constantly telling people who I present to about this because I have an ulterior motive. I've had a lot of cases go to trial because for whatever reason these pimps think they can beat us, especially if it's a female that's coming after them. And so we'll go to trial and, I want a jury that understands the dynamics of trafficking and understands that I am talking about this person being victimized. They may be freely walking down the side of the road with a phone in their hand, but they're not free to leave. All of these other things are going on here. And when you are on a jury, you have a big deal. You have a big job to do. You may be putting someone in prison for the rest of their life, but that victim has to live with what happened to them for the rest of their life. So let's not forget that. And if it's multiple victims, I mean, come on, this should be an easy choice. But it's definitely one of those things where I think we're doing better. When I present, I also talk about two cases, that one case that's the big one, and then this other case that I did back in 2011. And the case in 2011 involved a 14-year-old who was on social media, even back then. This was 2011.
13 years ago.
Yeah. On social media, lured away from home, runs away because she's encouraged to do so by the trafficker, gets on a Greyhound bus all by herself. Hello, Greyhound. What the hell?
Been there.
Gets on a Greyhound bus, arrives in Phoenix. He has sex with her. He trafficked her out of Arizona into New Mexico and Texas. But my point with this whole thing is this was one kid, 14 years old, with him for a long period of time, had a lot of evidence. He didn't fight it. He actually took a plea, but it was only for 20 years. I mean, when she is under the age of 15, we have dangerous crimes against children, additional felony charges we could charge. And all the stuff that happened after, I've got him on video assaulting her in a hotel lobby. I mean, all kinds of evidence. But he only got 20 years. Fast forward to now, that big case that I was talking about, it's familial trafficking. It's where the uncle was having sex with the 13-year-old niece, and then she basically moved in with him down here in Phoenix and stayed with him from 14 and a half-ish to almost 17, and was working as a prostitute every day for him out of that house with the other adult females. Anyway,
you say prostitute, you mean like sex slave?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, he kept her high and he had
Coerced her.
Oh, for sure.
Fuck.
Yeah, and force. Obviously, there's
And then
some violence here.
she walks about the community, and there's no she's just like a normal person.
Well, she wasn't really leaving that house.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
She was entrapped in prison.
Correct. Like she
Okay.
was not going to school. She was at that house all day long.
All for this motherfucker
doing his bidding.
to have his thing.
Yeah, I have good news though. At
Okay.
least this whole case went to trial, and we spent 7 months fighting this out. But he was found guilty on 101 out of 105 counts, and he was sent to prison for 493.5 years. So that's where my good ending is that we're doing better with our awareness and talking about this and learning about it. And that was in 2015, because we certainly weren't doing so well when I first started. Because that one trafficker, I have some that only got 9 years. You know what I mean? Back in the day.
My best
So we're doing much better.
best friend's dad only got 5.
Wow.
And the things he did to Aaron, he also did to Aaron's sister.
Wow. Well, hopefully, and he's out.
He's out walking this fucking earth
Wow.
like nothing ever happened.
Yeah, and that's one point that I wanted to make sure I bring up too, is we have a situation where I've had my 4th pimp now that I put away in prison, get out, and come right back to prostituting victims again, exploiting victims again. So, and I've had some where I've put back in.
Yeah.
And we can hold, other felony convictions against them for, longer years, longer time in jail. But I think that needs to be relooked at as far as, if you go right back out to
isn't it a
trafficking.
violation, right? It's a violation.
It is. Yeah, it's a well, I mean, you're out on parole or probation for sure. But I mean, getting convicted a second time, going back to prison for the same thing, you think it should be like double.
Yeah, because
right?
there's
Or
a saying.
something?
There's a saying that goes, and dog bites you once, shame on him. Dog bites you twice, shame on you. He's pretty fucking aware of what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people just can't help themselves, I guess.
Yeah.
And you can't help them.
No, and that's the other thing. I've had so many that we put them in jail, we put them in prison, and they're still conducting their business from within jail or in prison.
Because cell phones are...
They have video
Mhm.
visits, they have cell phone calls, and now they have tablets.
Oh, really?
Correct.
So you're telling me prison literally has all the things that are the majority of entertainment for most children nowadays?
I'm told that they don't have access to the internet, but just like my
Okay.
niece could bypass the parental controls, I'm pretty sure skilled bad guys in prison can figure that out.
I know a guy. Of course, I won't say any names. I know a guy who did 10 years. He's been out for 5, and he had a cell phone the whole time. Was on Instagram and everything.
I don't doubt it.
He didn't use it for bad, though.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that.
But I mean,
he
how
still,
easy access was it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd rather be upset and informed than naive and
Yeah.
victim.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What can people do to help prevent this from happening?
So, like we've been
I know it's a
talking
broad
about-
question. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
But it starts with the children.
Yes.
It starts with the children.
Yeah. It starts with having those conversations earlier than you think, because now, like when I first started, the average age of a juvenile getting involved in sex trafficking was 15. Now it's 13 and inching more towards 12 or 11. So those conversations need to be happening even earlier. It
Okay.
needs to be conversations where parents are talking to them about people online, about the fact that you're not going to be Instagram famous with an open profile, about the fact that people are going to try and tell you to keep things from me, your mom or your dad. And when that happens, I want you to come tell me. And this is why. And this is why they're asking you to do those
You're helping
things.
them understand.
Yeah. Conversation.
Yeah.
With your kids.
Well, you know, the thing that we do with our kid is he sees a lot, he hears a lot. We just help him understand.
Yeah.
Because the more intelligent a kid is, and kids are, but a lot of kids have that taken away from them because when they go to do things that involves their creative mind, people tell them, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. No, don't do that. Do this instead.
Mm-hmm.
So have the conversations with your kid, even if it feels uncomfortable. It's not near as uncomfortable as what could be the latter.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as far as being a parent and not a friend, you're going to need to check and make sure that they're abiding by the expectations you set. So, for example, when I was a kid, I went one day and my dad was a cop, by the way, Phoenix officer.
Apple fall from the tree.
Yes. So I went babysitting I went with my friend hanging out, and her and I had this idea that we wanted to become our own little babysitting company, right? So we went and we made a flyer and we went flyering the neighborhood. I was supposed to be at her house, not walk in her neighborhood. So my dad literally drove up and down every street, pulled up on us, and was extremely upset because I wasn't where I said I was going to be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I lied by my actions.
Yeah.
Same with my own kid. There's no expectation of privacy in my house, right? It's my house. You're the juvenile.
That's right.
So I buy your phone. I'm going to look through your phone. If you change that password, you no longer have a phone.
Oof.
I will always be able to look through your phone.
It's called standards.
Expectations.
Yeah.
And I would take it out of his hand and start looking through it in front of him, or I'd do it on the outside of him knowing. But he knew at any time I could walk up and take his phone out of his hand, so he better not be doing what I told him not to do. Bottom line.
And your kid or kids?
One.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. An adult now, however, in his or her teen years, still had access to social media.
No.
Okay.
I didn't let him.
That's what I meant. Media. Like social media was around, but you did not let him have social media.
That was another rule.
Got it. Well, he doesn't need it. No kid freaking needs it. I don't care what anyone says.
And even right now, he has an Instagram, but he's barely on it because he does the gaming stuff. Obviously, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. Online gaming.
Yeah.
That's
a whole other.
Well, I say this: I'd rather have a video game nerd than a crackhead. Correct,
and he's never done anything like that, and I truly believe he's never even tried marijuana.
I believe
He's 22 and he barely wants to have alcohol. I even offer him alcohol all the time. He doesn't want to have a drink with his mom. I don't know. But no, I must have done something right with, establishing those rules, having the conversation and checking in and making sure that you're doing what I told you to do.
Well, Heidi, you're educated. Okay.
Well, only from being in law enforcement. Sure. I don't have a degree or anything.
Right. You don't need a degree. I don't have a fucking degree.
Yeah.
I own 7 businesses.
Yeah.
And I do okay. I don't have a degree. I have friends that have degrees. They make sub $100K a year.
Yeah.
I do that and I ain't even going to freaking brag. Look, this is the fact of the matter is if you were to say, I got some more questions, but I don't want to miss. If you were to say something really powerful that would resonate with anybody on that camera about anything that we're talking about what you do, what would it be?
Well, I think learning about the problem and taking action where you can appropriately is super important. And then let's change the game to be, instead of filming something happening so that I can put it on Instagram later, actually helping. Like, for example, I've had so many victims describe broad daylight, sitting at the bus stop, getting beat by their trafficker, and people are breaking out their phones, but they're not calling the police. They're videotaping it. And they're not taking action to help that victim in any way, not to deter the guy from continuing to assault the victim, nothing. So we need to stop moving in that direction where we're just trying to capture it for Instagram or capture it for TikTok and actually help people instead of going to our phones for that purpose.
Oof. That's a hard one. I've seen that. I feel like people are I don't want to say it's their fault because their actions are, I won't say actions. I'm talking about people who are standing by watching film. They do what they do because they were shown and they believe like, oh, that's what I should be doing. And it's unfortunate that they have a habit that they've learned and it's going to take time to unlearn. And it may take some real hard conversations or.
Yeah. And it used to be that they didn't want to get involved.
Right, because
They-
they don't want to get hit.
They didn't want retaliation. They didn't want, threats towards their direction. But you can still be a good witness, and you can still make a phone call, and you can.
It's pretty easy to call the police.
Even if you don't want a patrol car and a police uniform showing up at your house, provide your phone number. We'll call you. We don't have to see you face to face.
You can even ask your phone to call 911. I don't want
Yeah.
to say it out loud so that it, like, hey,
Yeah. Mhm.
call, and then, it'll unlock and call.
It does
Right.
make it easy.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Man. I had a question, but I think we kind of answered it. In which countries is child and human trafficking most common? However, and I think, we have a big enough problem here. We shouldn't be worried about other places.
Well, I think what it is, if you were to Google human trafficking statistics, you'll see like 37 billion to 27 billion. All of these numbers, I don't know how anyone can even repost that stuff because
Yeah.
how would we know? We have no idea how many
Yeah.
people are actually out there because they haven't come forward yet.
Yeah.
The only thing we know is the ones that we've rescued or that have self-reported and gotten out of the life themselves. And those are the numbers that we can count on. So we really don't know how big the problem is. We don't know how
I see.
many people are victim.
I
We
see.
also do know, though, some stats as far as sex buyers. And we know that because of undercover operations. Like, for example, we did an undercover operation, just a week-long operation, one-time deal, but we wanted to know how many men are buying sex in the Phoenix area.
Uh-huh.
So we had 10 female undercovers. We all posted ads on the various platforms at the time.
Uh-huh.
And there was a computer algorithm that kind of captured information on people who would click on our ad.
Uh-huh.
And then obviously those individuals that called us, because we were advertising as an escort, called us for a date.
Uh-huh.
We could talk to them,
Uh-huh.
further identify who they are because they're using their real phone number, plus the information based on their IP address and whatnot from clicking on our ad. So in that operation, we were able to establish a baseline of how many people were calling our ads.
Over a week.
Over a week.
Okay.
And Arizona State University, they have a sex trafficking intervention research unit,
Uh-huh.
and they do a really good job of putting, actual data to all of this. And they came up with the number of 100,000 men on a daily here in Arizona are buying sex, or at least are clicking on those ads and attempting to purchase
I'm
sex.
sorry, 100,000.
Mm-hmm. And that's just the online activity. We also have street prostitution in the Arizona area, several locations. So it's one of those things that I think, and people want to know how to solve this problem. I'm going to not apologize here, but men are causing this problem because they're the ones buying the sex. I've never had a female buy sex.
Yeah.
So if men would just stop buying sex, we'd eliminate the demand for this issue and it would go away.
So these guys, call it lonely, horny man, go take a woman out on a date, be a real man.
I mean, there's all kinds of things you could do now. There's dating apps and, even in person in bars and restaurants. I mean, out on excursions, pickleball, whatever. You can meet people wherever. You don't need to be doing the underground stuff that you think.
Get out there and do human shit.
Yeah.
Stay off the internet.
Yeah.
I use the internet as a tool. I own multiple companies. I'm on Google, whatever. I have Instagram. I'm building a brand, all that good stuff. But I definitely get on there, and sometimes I find myself like doom scrolling. I'm like, oh, fuck. I try to look at stuff that's constructive and positive and funny, but wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So next question. Oh, I had a question about apps, but I already asked that one. Is our government doing anything to help? Am I allowed to ask that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our government,
Yeah.
the dinosaurs in the Oval Office.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where there are several laws that have changed over the recent years that are very helpful. Prior to, I think it was 2016, at least in this state, if you were a sex buyer and you're on the 27th Avenue picking up a girl And if she looked 23, 30 something, I wouldn't be able to prove that you knew how old she was, right? So let's say you got pulled over and the officers talked to her and it was an agreement for sex in exchange for money or whatever. Now, if you get pulled over, I don't care if she looks 40. If she's not an adult, she's under 18, you can get arrested and charged with a felony. I don't have to prove that you would have or should have known how old she was.
Yeah.
He or she.
Yeah.
So that is helpful for sure, because I've had cases where traffickers can stand on the fact that I can't prove they knew how old the girl was and I couldn't charge them with child sex trafficking.
So there's girls that walk an avenue that are prostitutes that are under 18.
Yes. As well as posted up online.
Damn.
Yeah, it's a little bit overwhelming because this whole lifestyle is very transient. They're moving, transient.
Yeah.
They don't really have a house, a home base.
I see.
They live out of hotels.
Okay.
And they're moving around constantly. One, because they don't want to get caught by the police.
Right, yeah.
Totally understandable. Two, though, they want, a part of this whole dynamic is the isolation. They want their victim to not be able to get to know anyone. So if they hung out at a hotel too long and the hotel desk clerk, a normal person, would say, hey, how can I help you get away from this situation you're in? They don't want that. So they're moving constantly to keep them completely isolated and not able to communicate with anybody.
Who's moving them?
Traffickers.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Like a pimp?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Pimp,
Okay.
Pimp, trafficker.
Because when I think pimp and when people think pimp, they think back in the 80s, the guy with the cane and the hat, and it's a person who is utilizing somebody for their financial benefit at a very disturbing.
Yeah. So there is some movies out there that I would recommend. I was in a documentary, Sex Trafficking in America. It came out in May of 2019 on Frontline PBS. And that is a good depiction of not only domestic sex trafficking, because it follows an actual case with a juvenile who was convinced to run away from home, from her parents' house in Maricopa. And she went with the one pimp, and then she kind of got traded to the other two. So all three of them at one point in time trafficked her. So that case took 3 years because that's how long it took to resolve to the ending of them all taking pleas. But it is a good depiction of that and how that happened to a juvenile. But also it shows a lot of undercover operations and us doing proactive work trying to target these guys. So I have walked 27th Avenue thousands of times as a prostitute.
Are you what?
Yeah, that's what undercover work is.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but like it's still like, whoa.
I have watched thousands of men take their wedding ring off, put it in the cup holder, and then solicit me for sex. Thousands. And then as an undercover, I have participated in posting ads on those same platforms and having sex buyers come to my hotel room, engage in conversation where they believed that we were going to have sex in exchange for it isn't always money, but most of the time money.
Wow. Okay, I asked that question. Okay, good. Well, with that being said, you kind of started this conversation. I was going to ask, are there any stories that you can share that were maybe good stories, some wins? You did have some wins, and any funny stories? I know it's not a laughing matter, but like any wins, some good stories, some funny stories. You've walked what you said is what avenue? I'm not from Phoenix, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. So there's known areas for prostitution. A term for that is called track or blade. And in Phoenix, in that area, 27th Avenue is right next to a freeway, I-17. And so it is a known area where street prostitution happens. And it's miles and miles. It's like from McDowell all the way to North and Northern. So it's a huge stretch. But that's not the only blade we have in Phoenix. We have several. And then there's one in Tucson. There's a couple in Mesa. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
all over the state, and then they're all over other states.
So this is everywhere.
Everywhere.
This is everywhere.
Yeah. And I think what it is that criminal organizations, drug trafficking is number one, right? Illegal arms trade's number two. Human trafficking's tied and inching more towards drug trafficking as far as the number one criminal organization here in the United States. We have gangsters and drug dealers that realize if you traffic a person over and over and over again, you're going to make a shit ton of money. And also, if you're trafficking a person, you can get pulled over by the police. Go ahead and search my car, officer. Super cooperative, no big deal, because as long as they control the mouth of those other passengers in the car and no one says anything, they're not going to get caught for anything like they would if they had drugs or stolen property in the car. So that is where it's much more appealing to do that kind of criminal activity than the other. I mean, not to mention if you have drugs, you sell it, you got to go get more. If you have a person, you just keep them around and you always have your product with you. And if you have multiple people, you have that much more product. Yeah, I don't have a lot of happy things to say. But as far as wins, we are evolving because prior to a couple of years ago, we would base all of our cases off of a victim. If my victim's cooperative, I'm good to go. But the problem with that is sometimes these cases take 2, 3, 4, 5 years to go to trial. And that's a long time to have a victim show up to court, pay parking, go inside, have to see their trafficker.
Yeah.
Get it continued, go home, have to come back, see their trafficker, get it continued, go home, right? So keeping them wanting to still press charges and still do this to get them justice is really, really hard.
Yeah.
So in response to that, and obviously we should have been doing this a long time ago, but we've evolved. So coinciding with a case involving a victim, just in case, obviously, we are now doing financial investigations on these guys. They have no legitimate income. They have no job.
Yeah.
They're making money off of exploiting others.
Yeah.
All of that money being made is illegal money laundering.
They launder it.
So we are going after them for these financial investigations, coinciding with the victim, just in case the victim falls off, we still have them.
Got it. And how do they launder the money? Like what avenue do you see as most
So
common?
what it is, when people think money laundering, they think actual, like in the washing machine and stuff.
Money laundering, the term comes from taking money that's dirty, illegal money, and cleaning it and making it look legitimate. In other words, you have a business that you run it through, and it's not a real business. It's just there to make the money look legit to the IRS. That's money laundering. Go ahead.
And they think that they are doing that through, I have a YouTube channel, I'm a rapper, I have a recording studio, I have a podcast studio, all kinds of other things that they're
my God,
claiming that that's their legitimate business, but what in reality is going on is they're actually pimping out and exploiting victims.
So
that's the front.
Okay. They launder money through their internet.
Their little LLCs.
Their internet LLC. I'm a rapper. I'm this. I'm an influencer.
Yeah. Even if they have 250 followers on YouTube, they're a rapper and they're famous, and we should respect that. Yeah. I've had this.
You've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not really a big rap fan anyways, but is there anything else that you want? I asked a lot of questions, and gosh, it's terrifying. But what can you do to reassure people that we are headed in the right direction? What could you say to reassure people that we're headed in the right direction? And what would you do to make sure that we keep this in perpetuity?
Yeah. So I think what it is we are doing better. We have prosecutors and judges and detectives doing better investigations, and juries actually seeing through the nonsense and seeing the real situation. But only that continues if people educate themselves and become more aware of what's really happening. Not just with this crime, all kinds of things happening. But in addition to that, people want to get involved. And the appropriate way to get involved is to and even not even in this state, you can Google anti-human trafficking organizations. They're everywhere in every state, and they're doing really good things. One thing that they do, and what I would encourage more of, is when I have a victim I've rescued and I'm sitting across the table from the victim, they're worried about their toiletries and their heels and their makeup back at the hotel room, because that's the only property that they are allowed to have and own. And when I'm telling them we're walking away from all that, I don't want you to go back there. I'll try and go get your stuff. I may not be able to get it. It may be gone already. That's almost enough for them, because they're so attached to the little property that they even have,
Yeah.
to, not even want to cooperate anymore sometimes. So being able to offer them like a backpack with a hoodie in it, flip flops, leggings, undergarments, because a lot of times when I'm talking to them, they're barely wearing anything and they have a phone, and that's it. And that phone is something that I'm going to take as evidence. So being able to offer them, their own property, and organizations that collect those donations, put it together and be able to provide it to the law enforcement responding out there who's having contact with those victims.
So there's ways to donate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And then what's the website?
So we have several organizations here. We have the Dream Center, which I believe is turning into Phoenix something Hope, or Where Hope Lives. I think it's Where Hope Lives. That's what they're renaming their organization. But the Dream Center, Phoenix Dream Center, is one for adult victims, and then they also have a juvenile facility. So it's a matter of your local law enforcement. Even you could donate those items to, because we're the ones who are going to be doing the rescues and taking them to those shelters, those placement facilities. So really good organizations out there, specifically in Arizona. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay.
You could probably put that in your show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Anything
Yeah.
we do to get out there, we will. Heidi, so you still currently to this day work as a law enforcement instructor?
Yes.
Okay. So your thing is you go and educate other law enforcement on what you do so that it continues to.
So I not only am still in law enforcement, but my other job is I'm an instructor for the National Criminal Justice Training Center out of Fox Valley Technical College in Wisconsin, for the Amber Alert program. And so I've been doing that since 2014. So I travel all over the United States. I do webinars and such for law enforcement, for social services, for probation, for community organizations that are in the anti-human trafficking world and the fight. And it's different training. Some of it's law enforcement specific, like the undercover operations and how to interview, because I'm a forensic interviewer. So how to interview a child, how to interrogate a suspect, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something I will continue doing as long as I can, for sure. And then I also have branched off to do that personally with my own company that I'm trying to be successful at.
So parents, do the right thing for your kid, educate them. Don't be afraid to, put them on, turn their fucking phone off, right? Help them understand. And obviously drugs plays a big part of this.
Yeah, drugs are definitely a big part. I have a search warrant of a Facebook from one of the traffickers that I put away that has literally conversations between the victims. Daddy, can I have a pill?
Oh, fuck.
Do this date first. Daddy, can I have a pill? Do this date first. Over and over again. So obviously control through their addiction to the fentanyl pills.
Fentanyl.
Mm-hmm.
Straight up.
That was that particular trafficker.
Yeah. Well, we've heard a lot about fentanyl and
Mm-hmm.
how dangerous it is. What the fuck? So this isn't just one thing that we have to address. It's multiple faucets that are all funneling this.
Yeah, it's and when I teach at the academy, I talk about 911 operator, she takes the call initially and names it a loud noise complaint or names it a domestic violence or names it a robbery or a stolen vehicle. But as law enforcement, we know when we show up, just because that's what she called it doesn't mean that's what this crime is or what I'm walking into.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, even a robbery or a stolen vehicle, it's a sex buyer who's reporting their vehicle stolen because they got to tell their wife what happened to the car. Originally, though, they picked up a girl on 27th Avenue. She took him back to her hotel room. He's literally with his pants down. She texts the pimp. Pimp comes in with a gun, steals his wallet, steals the keys. So now he has to report his vehicle stolen. You know what I mean? So it's other crimes. And what really probably happened was more to the story as far as the whole picking up the girl. Could have been a kid. Who knows? And here we are responding to what we think is a stolen vehicle report.
So there's also situations where guys get robbed by the pimp.
Yeah. Yeah.
They get baited.
A lot of that's not even reported. Like if they don't have to worry about telling their wife what happened to the car, they're not going to report any of that.
Yikes.
Yeah. The more we learn about pornography, that is,
Sounds like
the
a gateway.
addiction to that pornography is totally directly related to them carrying out some type of form of that with engaging with calling a girl off of an ad. So one thing leads to another for sure.
So the guy goes to the screen to get this
Excited.
porn fix or whatever.
Excited.
And then at the same time, a girl goes in the camera
right
to project.
Yeah,
and
that's
pornography
a whole
isn't
other problem.
And pornography isn't necessarily just a girl choosing to make money. Is that possible that it's connected to pimps as well?
Oh yeah, no, I've had a lot of pimps make their girls not only advertise online but do OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
Yep, and that's
cancel your OnlyFans account.
Yeah, that's what's contributing to all of this. I mean, not just OnlyFans, but that deviance and that sexual promiscuity. That
so I know there's people on Instagram that have a lot of followers, and they also have a way that you can go to their OnlyFans from there, like the link tree, and then there's an OnlyFans, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
They post their link on their story.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's a whole other headache.
So between all of that, the drugs, the trafficking, kind of like up there in like the number one crimes, and it's a lot of money.
A lot of money, yeah.
And more likely to get away with it because, like you said, search my car, good luck kind of thing.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. It's difficult. I mean, these cases, I'm not going to have a witness that saw you go have sex with somebody, make money, and then turn that money over to your trafficker. Probably not going to have a witness that saw that. So we have to like put these cases together and pile up as much corroborative evidence on the side of what the victim's saying versus what the suspect says. And that's like DNA, cell phone apps, all the social media stuff, video surveillance, hotel records, travel records, vehicle rentals, all that kind of evidence to tell the story to back up what the victim, we believe the victim, we've got to back up what they're saying because we can't put someone in jail for his word against her word. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's,
So they're not easy.
No, they're not. You're out there doing the good work.
Yep. And I'm definitely not alone. I mean, there's a lot of good detectives running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to make an impact somewhere here.
Okay. All right. Man, anything else? I'm kind of out of questions. And I mean, I know we could just chop it up. It's been an hour.
Yeah. No, I definitely think that, people need to learn more about this and they need to share information about it. Yeah. They need to know where to report. That's super important. There is the National Human Trafficking Hotline. You can text message that hotline. They have it in several different languages. The hotline, however, is not a governmental organization, so they're not a mandatory reporter. So they're not going to encourage you to call police. If you want that kind of thing to happen, local law enforcement is the way to go. There's also a delay kind of in the info. from you make a phone call to the National Center, it may take 2 or 3 days to get to the actual detective that would even be investigating it.
Mhm.
So it's better to just direct connect to your local law enforcement. If it's a crime happening right now, that would be 911. That is what 911 is for.
Yeah.
If it is a crime that you're like, I don't want the cops to show up here at the Starbucks. I'm sitting here with my coffee, but I'm pretty sure that lady over there is arranging dates. And it sounds like she's got, some dates for these girls that are on her computer screen that I can see. So I'm going to just take some video of that lady over there. And I'm going to get her.
I like that,
Yeah,
Heidi.
I'm
So
gonna
you just
get
you
her-
like
yeah.
act like you're on the phone. Oh my
And I'm
goodness.
going to get her license plate. And then I'm going to provide that information to law enforcement and not have patrol cars show up at the Starbucks. You know what I mean?
So one of the things I do, jujitsu, I teach jujitsu to, I have a lot of police officer friends that I teach, and some of them are SWAT guys.
Mm-hmm.
One of them actually is the instructor of my 6 a.m. class at my school. He's a bronze medalist, world champion grappler, and he's a SWAT guy, right?
Is he former Phoenix?
No, this is Seattle.
Okay,
I'm from
Seattle.
Seattle. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like, and he's an
I
officer.
might know him.
He's an officer, of a particular city,
Mm-hmm.
but the SWAT guys, they go to all over places.
Yes.
Yeah. Like there's guys that are officers from this city and this city and this, they're all on the SWAT team.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys, you ever utilize SWAT?
Yeah. So
When you have a solid lead, like, like this is happening, we got the evidence. Here's where, like, you call SWAT.
Yeah, because a lot of times these pimps have guns, and if
absolutely.
we're gonna bust in a hotel room,
You need a trained.
We need that to get handled correctly, so
'Cause,
that it's safe for everyone.
I'm not going to say anything, as far as details, but me being friends with SWAT guys, I've heard some stories.
Oh yeah,
And they're fucking real guys.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've heard some stories. Terrifying.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrifying.
So the Dream Center is basically a old hotel, and it is kind of an oxymoron that we have a shelter that is a hotel, and that's where most of the exploitation for these victims takes place, in a hotel. But it isn't like that at the Dream Center. They've renovated like a whole floor of several hundred rooms that look like little apartments, and each one has its own theme, and they're constantly renovating those because they want it to feel like a home for these victims that are coming out of the life. And so in the middle of the night, I could have a victim, decide, you know what, I'm not going back to him. I need to get away, but I have nothing. I don't have an ID. I don't have a job. He has all of my money. I only got my little bag at the hotel, which obviously I'm convincing them that that's not worth it. Come with me. Let me take you to a safe place. And so we can take them there. And they have rules there, like they have to not have their phone because they don't want pimp showing up there.
Yeah.
So they kind of restrict them a little bit as far as, for this period of time, let's get you settled, and then you can move forward to, contacting family and those kind of things. But they get them stable, and they help them get a job, help them replace their ID, help them with any medical conditions they might have going on, all kinds of assistance.
What about their identity? Can they change it?
So yes, we've helped several victims legally change their name and those kind of things. Yes, because that's concerning. I mean, there's traffickers out there that do not care, and they've threatened you before with a gun, and they probably will act on that. So it is. For example, some of the pimps I've put away, I had one do a public records request from prison for my personnel file.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I'm very serious. So intimidation is part of their situation, and they don't care who they're intimidating or trying to intimidate. Bring it on, though. Come on.
Yeah, right. Let's go.
I'm not afraid of you.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. Like, step on the mat. Let's go. Bring it on. You're a black belt at this.
I'm definitely not a black belt, but I'm a black belt.
That's what I meant. You're a black belt at
yes.
this.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Heidi. Appreciate it. That was good.